Hello, welcome to another podcast episode. It's sunny today. Now, where's my bit of paper? Here we are. 10 degrees centigrade, that's 6 o'clock this morning. It's about 7 o'clock now. 50 Fahrenheit, 59% humidity, 1020 millibars on the barometer, and the flag, can you believe it? I don't know why I bother. A fairly strong wind from the east. We've got sunshine coming up, the sky is blue. There are a few cotton wool type clouds around, but in the main it's going to be a nice day. We're fast heading towards our Isle of Wight holiday, so apparently the weather is going to be nice. Lucy, thank you for your email. Lucy says a lot of people are questioning just how politically correct the world has become. And she says at the same time others worry about what they see in a decline in social standards. Thanks for your email, Lucy. She goes on to say, what was it like in your day, Ray? I think we've covered this before. I don't remember people being offended as they are today. As for politically correctness, well, there sort of wasn't anything back then. We just were incorrect all the time, I suppose, if you compare with today how politically correct people are or are expected to be. Back then there was no correctness at all. We sort of did what we liked and said what we liked. People would call each other names at school and it was just part of growing up. Adults in pubs would sometimes disagree, swear at each other. Again, part of life, I suppose. Whereas these days it's very difficult. You've got to be careful what you say. Lucy goes on to say that she feels that life is more fast-paced, more stressful than ever before. By the way, Lucy's, how old are you? Oh, here we are, I made a note of it. 65, there we are, Lucy, 65. So yes, you're not as old as me, but you do remember the, what you have called and what I agree with, the better days. She's questioning what exactly has changed over the years. Well, if you were a child in the 50s or 60s, you probably remember, as I do, a very different world altogether. We played outside, in the street, unsupervised. I think I started playing out in the street from the age of, 6, 7, possibly even 5, just outside the front of the house, other kids in the street, so I was quite safe. There wasn't the traffic, of course, back then. People smoked, didn't they, in pubs? Well, that's up until fairly recent. I mean, it's only, when did they ban smoking in pubs here? Only the last sort of 20, 15 years, isn't it? Something like that. So people smoked in pubs. That's changed, of course. That's a fairly recent change. Women, Lucy mentions about women's clothing in the 50s and 60s. They didn't wear jeans. I think you're right there, Lucy. In the main, children, girls wore frocks, as they call them, frocks back then, which were essentially dresses, weren't they? Boys wore short trousers or jeans. I do remember when I went over the woods, sometimes a couple of girls would join us, come over the woods with us. Sometimes they would wear jeans, but in the main, they wore frocks. It didn't seem to bother them climbing trees and the rest of it, whatever else we got up to over there, crawling around on our hands and knees, poking around in the pond. They wore frocks most of the time, but I do remember one or two occasions where they wore jeans. Maybe that was the winter time, I can't remember. Oh, Lucy mentions tattoos and piercings. She says she can't remember that. No, I can't. I don't. Oh, in fact, a friend of mine, when he was 18, he got a tattoo on his arm, just below his shoulder. Now, I remember that, and I remember thinking how awful that was at the time. It was very rare for people to have tattoos and piercings. I don't remember piercings at all. Maybe I led a sheltered life, but I just don't remember that at all. Just going back to clothing, women always wore dresses or skirts, whether they're at home or shopping or whatever they're doing. I just don't remember. Oh, there were things called slacks. Dreadful names, slacks. I do remember one or two women wearing slacks, but in the main, they wore a skirt and a blouse type shirt thing or a dress, something like that. I just don't remember women going around in, well, certainly not jeans, but possibly these slack things. In the 60s, later 60s, 70s, then women did start to wear, do you remember those dreadful trouser things that came, well, they sort of ended above your ankle, about 6 inches above your ankle. They looked like they were too short. Even today I see people wearing those, and I just think, well, they don't fit. They don't look right. Do you like those? I don't know. I don't like those. I've got my notes here. Raise rants at protonmail.com. What people did do, men in the Navy, they had tattoos. In the Navy, we had a neighbour of ours over the road. He was in the Navy and he had a tattoo. It was a knife up his arm with a snake wrapped around it. I don't know what that meant. Something or other, no doubt. Those trousers weren't really too short. They were, but they were designed to be too short, which I always found odd. I still do find it odd. Also, back then in the 50s, 60s, people didn't live in sin as they do. That's a funny term, isn't it? Living in sin, male and female or whoever these days, living together when they're not married. That was living in sin. Who remembers that? I lived in sin for about, 3 or 4 months. This girlfriend of mine, she had her own place and I moved in with her, only for 3 or 4 months, and we lived in sin. Anyway, I soon went home. I didn't like it there. I soon went home back to mum and dad. It was far better. I had more freedom back with mum. I mean, I was young. I don't know why I did that. I just can't remember what was in my mind at the time. Cohabiting is what they call it, outside of marriage or before marriage. Phone boxes have gone, haven't they? Phone kiosks, they've all disappeared. No one wants a phone box anymore. I think there are 1 or 2 around. Swearing on television, Lucy mentioned that. Swearing these days on telly, well, you hear it all, don't you? All the words you can hear on telly, well, apart from one possibly. Back in the old days, you didn't hear swearing on the telly. It just, well, that would have been more than frowned upon. It would have been dreadful. Swearing on the television just didn't happen. I never thought the day would come when it, well, like now, when it's acceptable, it seems. Talking of swearing on the television, people back in the old days, the good old days as I call them, comedians, not on TV, but comedians at clubs and pubs would tell dirty jokes. They were known as blue jokes back then. There weren't dirty jokes on the telly. Comedians just weren't allowed to tell dirty jokes on TV. The comedians back then were good. I always thought that if a comedian has to tell a dirty joke to get a laugh, then he's not a very good comedian. Clean jokes can be as funny, if not funnier, than dirty jokes. So back then there weren't the dirty jokes on the telly. There were in the pubs, in the working men's clubs. Not that I've ever been to one of those back in the old days, but you did hear back then that they'd had some comedian, and the air was blue with his dirty jokes and all that. There was someone on TV the other day saying, have we lost the ability to laugh at ourselves and at each other? Has humour gone now? We've all had a humour bypass, as someone put it, which is quite funny. It does seem to be the case. In the old days you could laugh at yourself if you did something wrong or laugh at each other. No one took offence. It was just a way of life, I suppose. It was normal, laughing at each other, telling each other jokes, even about each other. I remember a chap in the pub, he was bald. This is going back, the 60s. We called him Egghead. Egghead, because he looked like he had a bit of hair around the outside. In fact, our science master, we called him Egghead. But this chap in the pub, he was only, 20, 25, and he was bald on top. And he didn't mind being called Egghead. It was just, I don't know, it was clean fun back then, wasn't it? Clean fun. No mobile phones back then. We never would have thought in a million years that the day would come when you'd carry around a very small device in your pocket and you could phone anyone, anywhere in the world. That would have been science fiction, but of course it's come about, hasn't it? So many things have changed. Women wore headscarves, didn't they? A woman wouldn't leave the house without her headscarf. I suppose half the reason was to keep her hair down, because in the wind it would blow everywhere. And the other half of the reason, what was the other half of the reason? I don't know. Because everyone did. It was like hats. A headscarf was like a hat. You don't go out without your hat on. Happy days. Raise rants at protonmail.com if you have anything to say. Rude or otherwise, I don't take offence. You say what you like to me. So many things back then were a way of life. The milkman calling in the morning, leaving milk bottles on your doorstep. The paper boy, we talked about paper boys and girls the other day, didn't we? Newspaper comes through your door. The postman, early morning post, and then later there'd be another post. Well, there was 4 post deliveries back in the early days. Morning post, mid-morning post, afternoon post and evening post. So the postman was kept pretty busy. I think now they're trying to stop deliveries on Saturday, aren't they? In Britain, I don't know about other countries. We don't get post on Sunday, of course. but we do on Saturday. I think they want to stop that. Our dustbins are being emptied now, fortnightly, I believe it is. In fact, our recycle bin, I mean, there wasn't recycling back then, was there? Our recycle bin, it is a month. I believe it's a month between one collection and another collection, because in between we've had bank holidays and they change the day and this and that. So it's a month. We've got a stack of cardboard because we separate all that, obviously. We've got a huge box out in the back garden under the patio roof so it doesn't get wet. Not that we've had rain. And it's full of cardboard stuff, thin cardboard packets, you name it, cardboard, paper. That's all in the box because there's no room in the bin for it. Then the coalman used to call, didn't he? With those, they 100-weight sacks on his back, tip all the coal into your coal bunker. His face and hands were black with soot. Road sweepers, they were out there. Just going back to phone boxes, I remember on more than one occasion, I'd say to a girl, what's your phone number? She'd give me a phone number, okay, and she'd say, can you phone this number at 7:30 or 7 o'clock on the dot? It's because it was a phone box. She'd give me the number of the nearest phone box to where she lived, say down the end of her road. I would phone the phone box and she'd be there and answer it. That happened on, several occasions, I believe, if I remember correctly. And I remember people standing outside a phone box waiting for it to ring. That was funny. You get a couple of old ladies, I don't know why they were old ladies, but they were, in their headscarves or their hair nets. That was funny. So they'd wait out there and they'd look at the time, the watch, and then the phone would ring. Oh, that would be yours, not mine. Don't be too long because mine's ringing at 15:15. Hair nets. My old Nan, she used to wear a hairnet all the time. In fact, at the Bletchley Park weekend we did, we dressed up in the 40s clothes. Trish and her sister, they had hairnets on. A lot of the ladies did, most of them. They look, I don't know, they keep the hair nice and kind of neat, I suppose, but I don't know, I think I prefer flowing hair. Of course, if it's very windy out, then the hair isn't so much flowing, but blowing all over the place. Then there was hairspray. Do people still use hairspray? No, I mustn't tell you that. Oh, perhaps I will. I used hairspray in the 60s. My hair was so long. I try and get it just right how I wanted it to look if I'm going to a nightclub. And then I put Mum's hairspray all over it. I think you could get unperfumed or stuff that didn't stink, If you touched your hair, it was sort of solid. It didn't move at all. It was weird, like wearing a hard hat. I shouldn't have told you that. We had some funny nicknames for people. There was one chap, we used to call him Spokes, as in bicycle wheel spokes. And we called him Spokes because he was into bicycles. He was always cycling here and there, cycling everywhere. And he just had this nickname, Spokes. I don't know who started it, but that was it. It stuck for years. Another one, this poor chap, I don't know where it came from. People called him Toilet Face. Why would you call someone Toilet Face? He didn't look like a toilet at all. And people would say to him, if he interrupted or butted in, they'd say, who pulled your chain, Toilet Face? Well, that's not very nice, is it? Looking back, that's not very nice. But it was all friendly banter. I think I've told you before, my nickname was Quackers. That stuck for years, even into my 20s. I was Quackers. That's from the TV programme back in the 60s. There was a duck thing called Quackers. I don't know, I didn't see the programme. There was a chap in the pub whose nickname was Fat Man. He was short and fat. You can't say that these days. Imagine in the pub calling someone Fat Man. Someone would call the police, you'd be arrested. But he didn't mind that. That was just his nickname. He wasn't hugely fat. He was, can you say fat? No, I better not say it. Overweight. He wasn't hugely overweight, but he was chubby. Well, that's nice, isn't it? There was one called Skin. He was called Skin because he was an ex-skinhead. He had a sort of, a number one cut or a crew cut or something, or hardly any hair at all. He was a sort of ex-skinhead, so we called him Skin. There was Noggin. I don't know why we called him Noggin, but that's his name. That was it for years, his nickname, Noggin. There was Mucky Meg. I won't go into why she was known as Mucky Meg, but you can work that one out for yourselves. And later on in my 20s, there was this chap in the pub known as Armpit. Armpit. Yeah, again, you can probably guess why, especially when he wore nylon shirts in the summer. But he knew his name was Armpit. He knew why it was Armpit. But he didn't do anything about it. I'm just trying to think who else there was. I'm going back years, decades even, trying to think of other nicknames we had for people. Oh, there was a girl in the office at work. We called her Two Backs. I won't go into that. She was, 19, 20 years old? And we called her Two Backs. That's not nice, is it? There was another chap who used to bring a big thermos flask in to work every day with his tea in it. He didn't like the tea out of the coffee machine. I don't blame him. Coffee machine was full of mouse droppings. I used to watch if they opened the front, to fill up the sugar and the coffee and the tea or whatever. There's all these mouse droppings in the bottom of the machine. It was dreadful. So he bought his own flask in. So what was his nickname? Flask. I remember the boss coming into our workshop and he said, "Do you know who's got whatever it was?" And one of the lads said, "Oh, Flask has got that." And he went, "Who? Flask? Who that?" Anyway, I won't swear like he did. Flask. And another chap was known as Scarf. In fact, I think it was the same chap. Later on in years, he was known as Scarf because he always wore a blue and white scarf, which was the Brighton and Hove, well, I think it was just Brighton then, football team, the Seagulls. His scarf was blue and white, so we called him Scarf. Isn't it ridiculous? We were in our teens, how daft, well, not perhaps everyone, but how daft I was in my teens and the lads I worked with. We were all mad. Flask and Scarf and toilet face. Two Backs, oh dear, happy days. There was this old boy that used to get cigarette ends out of ashtrays, take the tobacco out, what was left, and roll them up in, Rizzler papers. He'd make his cigarettes. Disgusting. We called him Dog End. That was his nickname, Dog End, because that was what used to call a cigarette end, was it? The butt, when it's smoked. Can you say butt? Dog End. Can you imagine that? There was a gentleman of colour, is that the way to put it these days, that worked with us. He was great fun. He used to come out clubbing with us and down the pub and all sorts. He called us dreadful things and we called him dreadful things. But again, it was all banter. No one was offended. He was one of the lads. He was one of us. And as I said, he'd come clubbing with us and all sorts. It was great. There's a chap I knew in my teens. I still know now. I talked to him on the radio. His nickname is Feet. Won't go into that. Feet. People did have smelly feet. I'm not saying he did, but people used to have smelly feet back then. Do you remember that? Have you ever had smelly feet? Raise Rants at protonmail.com. What's your nickname? Have you got a nickname? Or any friends you know that have got strange nicknames? Let me know. Raise Rants at protonmail.com. Complete change of subject now. We were in a museum, when was it? About 6 months ago. I forget which museum. And we were looking at something and it said on it, I forget the exact year, but let's say it was 400 BCE. And I'm looking at it thinking, what's BCE? I don't understand that. And there were another couple and I could hear them talking and the chap was saying to his lady there, what's BCE? And the other one was CE, which I didn't understand either. So this chap, I heard him, he went and asked one of the volunteer chaps and he said, what's this BCE and this CE business? The volunteer came over and he looked. He said, I don't know. Because it was always BC, wasn't it? BC, before Christ, and AD, Anno Domini, which it has been for, 2025 years it's been that. Anyway, it seems to have changed. What it is, I looked it up. I spoke to this chap. I said, look, I found it on my phone. And I told him what it was. BC is Common Era. Common Era, it's a bit odd, isn't it? BC, Common Era, not, I don't know. That would have been AD, wouldn't it? Common Era. Era. And BCE would have been BC, if you see what I mean, before Christ, before Common Era. Apparently it's something to do with religious neutrality. Can't say the word, neutrality. We're all sort of neutral, we don't mention Jesus and Christ and stuff. So we've had to change it to What is a common era? Is that where we are now? In some sort of common era? Why do people change things? It just confuses everyone. I mean, no one cares whether it's BC, AD, whatever. No one bothers. It's like GMT. The time was always GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. Then the military, I can understand the military changing it to Z, or Z as you would say in America. Zulu. So they'd say 1800 hours Zulu, which is fine, 1800 Z. And then this UTC came along, Universal Time Clock, which I suppose it makes sense, but it's been GMT since the dinosaurs had their wristwatches. Why? Why change everything? I don't know. And then, here we go. Don't get me onto pub names. I've told you before, haven't I? There was out in Shoreham, what was it? The Coach and Horses. Everyone knew the Coach and Horses. Someone wants directions. Do you know where Primrose Avenue is? Yeah, go past the Coach and Horses pub. You know that? First on the right and you're there. Oh, I know. Yep, thanks very much. Now, do you know where Primrose Avenue is? Yeah, go past the Longshore. What? Where's the Longshore? It's the pub. What pub? Longshore? Never heard of it. Well, it was the Coach and Horses. What? Why change it? I like the Coach and Horses. The Longshore doesn't mean anything. You might, no, I better not say that. I was going to say something rude then. No point in moaning, I suppose, but I will. Apparently they've been changing some street names. Is it London and elsewhere? I don't know, it offended someone, some people or whatever. You can't change street names. I mean, what's the point in that? If you live in Upper Dicking, you can't change, Upper Dicking Road. You can't change it because someone's offended. It's Upper Dicking Road and that's it. Something I did learn looking up the, Anno Domini and all that. Domino make pizzas, don't they? I did learn that there's no year zero. I'll go back to the old term. I can't get used to the new one. There's 1 AD and there's 1 BC, but there's no zero. You can't say, where were you born? I was born 0. You were born 1 AD or 1 BC. So that's interesting, isn't it? No, it's not, you're thinking. Well, I found it interesting. I didn't know that. There's no year 0. Just going back to nicknames, I remember a chap that worked with my dad moons ago, many suns ago. And my dad called him Knocker Norris. The chap's name was Norris, that was his surname. And they called him at work, they called him Knocker Norris. And I remember saying to my dad, why is he called Knocker Norris? He said, I can't tell you. I was about 12, I suppose. So I don't know, Knocker Norris. As I said earlier, have you got any nicknames? Do let me know. It'd be really interesting to see. I think we've done this before, haven't we? And no one answered me. I do remember saying, what's your nickname? Do you know any nicknames for friends or relatives that are quite funny or amusing or whatever? I don't think anyone answered. I think a couple of you did, didn't? Yes, a couple of you did answer. raiserants@protonmail.com. Let me know. Did you see the pictures I put on raiserants.info, the web page there? Did you see those? I think I put some on of Bletchley Park, was it, and the RAF bunker, the Battle of Britain bunker. Very interesting. Just had an email from Jackie. I think you've emailed before, haven't you? I'm sure we've communicated before, Jackie. You say you're asking whether people left home in their teens, back in my day being kind of 60s, I suppose, or did they hang around at their parents' house forever? Jackie's got a son who's now 28 and is still living at home. And she says there's no sign of him ever moving out. He's got a girlfriend of, 8 years? And they're quite happy just seeing each other, going off on holiday. But he's staying at home, no sign of getting married or leaving. I left home at 16 and I got a bed sit downtown, bed sitting room. You got a little cooker and a sink and a bed and your own telly if you're lucky. And that's about it. Not that I ever cooked anything there. I think I lived there for a month or two, then went back to mum and dad. Because at mum and dad's it was cheaper, easier, had my washing done. Well, I took my washing home anyway to be done. I didn't eat at the place. I used to go out and get chips or dreadful things like that. Or go home for a meal if I was really hungry. I think in the mornings I just had cornflakes because I had a little fridge with milk in. And I made a cup of tea or coffee, but that was it. It wasn't a proper home, like a decent, well-equipped flat. And it was, what was it costing me? £1, 10 shillings a week. That's it. 30 bob a week, which is £1.50, of course. And there was a slot meter for the electricity. I think you put 2 bob bits in the slot meter. Or was it shillings or something? Can't remember. So I went back home and then I think I left again a little bit later. That's when I lived in Sin. Do you remember I told you earlier? I lived in Sin. And then when did I leave? I left finally when I got married. Yeah, I left finally when I got married. No, I had another bed sit actually in the meantime. It's a long time ago, the 60s, 70s. Anyway, when I got married, of course, we bought a house, and that was that. I couldn't move back home. Although I knew one chap, he got married after a year or so, fed up with that, and he moved back, left his wife, moved back with his mum and dad. Luckily, they were only renting a place, hadn't got children or anything. He got fed up with that. I remember him saying, I don't like this marriage lark. And he went home. I don't quite know what had gone wrong with his wife. But these days, people, as Jackie's pointed out in her email, people don't leave home. They stay at home in their 20s, into their 30s, possibly beyond. There are several reasons for that, of course. One is they can't afford to leave home. Rents these days are horrendous. Trying to get a mortgage is just, I don't know, it's so difficult. You need such a massive deposit to put down, to get a mortgage. It wasn't like this in the old days. We had no trouble getting a mortgage on our first house. It was just straightforward, going to a building society. He said, do you save here with us? I said no, because they liked it if you were a kind of saver with them. Then they could see you putting money in regularly. And he said, have you got a deposit? Yes, got a deposit, 600 quid the deposit. And I said, yeah, I've got that. What job do you do? What do you earn? Blah, blah, blah. They didn't count your wife's earnings back then. You could be on, I don't know, 50 grand a year, and your wife's on 200 grand a year. They wouldn't count that. I wish earnings were like that back then. Now, what was our first house? 9,400. So the deposit was 600. And that was it. Just, sign here, sign there, blah, blah, blah. Bits of paper everywhere. Solicitor, charge you a fortune for doing nothing. And then, with all due respect to solicitors. And then off you go. Oh, there was someone recently wanted to ask a solicitor a question. I can't remember what it was about. And the solicitor lady on the phone, the receptionist, she said, yeah, if you'd like to come in, you can discuss it with a solicitor. And this chap said, well, no, I don't need to discuss it. I just want to know, is this correct or not? Sort of in law, whatever it was. And the girl said, well, you'll have to come in and discuss it. And he said, oh, all right then. £300. £300 to discuss whatever it was. And he said, oh, forget it. I'm not coming in. I just want an answer. Is this correct, yes or no? Not spending 300 anyway. I don't know what he did in the end. I think he went online or did he go to the Citizens Advice Bureau? Anyway, he got the answer for nothing. 300 quid. Stone the crows. I remember a friend of mine, he'd been married, I don't know how long, 15 years, something like that. They got divorced, they split up. And he said to his wife, you sell the place, you move on, do whatever you like. I don't want anything out of it. And he said to his solicitor, all I do want out of it is your fee covered, because it was, 400 quid or whatever. He said, at least cover that. I don't want to come out of it, having given everything to my wife. I don't want to come out of it owing money. And the solicitor was, yeah, I understand that. He was fine with that. So that all went ahead. The house sold. She moved and bought another house. She had all the equity, blah, 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 furniture, everything. Then this chap, he got a letter from this solicitor, you owe me 400 quid. So he went to see the solicitor and he said, this should have all come out of the house. What are you talking about? It should have come out of the sale of the house. I told you I don't have bills. Oh, well, there was a mess up with the figures. You owe me 400 quid. Anyway, he wouldn't pay. The solicitor took him to court. The solicitor lost the case. The court said, well, no, he's given everything. He came out penniless. That's that. He hasn't got any money. The whole lot's gone. I remember this chap saying you had to prove adultery or bad behaviour or something when you were getting divorced. I think it's changed, I don't know. So he went to a solicitor and said, I've committed adultery with an unnamed lady at an unnamed address in an unnamed town at an unnamed time. And the solicitor said, OK, that's fine, that'll do. You've admitted adultery. The divorce can go ahead. What a weird way of doing it. Because I said to him, didn't you mind admitting adultery? He said, no, not at all, because I had anyway. No, it's not funny. Why am I laughing? So he just obviously didn't name anyone. It was more than one lady. Anyway, won't go into that. Things have changed. Society has changed, hasn't it, these days? It's so different. Everything now is so different. I bang on about cars. They've all got grey plastic dashboards. The old cars had the wooden dashboards. Everything has changed. It's not just cars. It's not just marriage and divorce. People not leaving home in their teens anymore. Absolutely everything has changed. Is it for the better? Let me know. RaisRants@protonmail.com. I was reading something the other day about kids then and now sort of thing. And they were saying that obviously, as we know, back in the old days, kids spent hours riding their bikes, climbing trees, playing with friends. And you could hear in your street or neighbouring streets kids laughing and shouting and screaming. They just roamed about until dinner time, of course, when they came home. Whereas today, I've made some notes here, according to studies, children today spend less than half the time outdoors that they used to, in the old days. So it's less than half the time outside. Is that good? I don't think that's good. Because, of course, parents now, they've got safety concerns. There's organised sports, there's lessons. Everything is structured. It's not just, do what you like, go over the woods, do what you like. You've got to do this, do that. Girls go to ballet lessons or dance classes, don't they? Boys do whatever. I don't know what boys do these days. But it's all structured. They don't seem to, this is what it was saying briefly, these days we don't seem to leave kids to their imagination. Everything's done for them. We're doing this, you're playing this sport. You're good at football, so that's what you're going to do. You're going to join the local team. You're into swimming, you're a really good swimmer, so going to take you swimming every week and you can get certificates and stuff. Whereas the child just wanted to go swimming for a bit of fun. It was basically saying that their freedom to create and explore on their own, like we did as kids, it's all now been scheduled, it's all organised and stuff. I don't know, I sort of agree with that. There were some parts of it I didn't agree with. As I've been saying, things have really changed. I think what I got from the article most of all was children back in my day when I was a child, we used our creativity, our imagination. We made our own games. There were board games, of course, Monopoly, Snakes and Ladders, drafts, chess, if you were that way inclined. I liked chess when I was young. I really liked chess, but I was hopeless at it, so that was the end of that. But we made our own games, all sorts of games that you play outside or in the field, in the park. Whereas these days it seems to be, as I said, all organised for you. I don't know. What do you think? Raise rants at protonmail.com. I'm going to end it here. I've got things to do. We're off to the Isle of Wight. I've got to start deciding which radios I'm going to take. Because you know me, I'm a nerd. I've got to talk to people on the radio when I'm on the ferry and when I'm on the island. I've arranged some skeds, as they call it, with people back here. On so-and-so day at so-and-so time, I'll give you a call on the radio. So I've got to organise radios and things. Tricia, of course, is all organised 110%. She's got everything, lists, notes everywhere. It's all done. So she's free now, whereas I haven't even started. No, it's not a lot I've got to do. It's just get some radios together and make sure they're fully charged. And make sure I take a charger with me and all that sort of thing. Tricia has even planned out what we're doing each day, where we're going. She's booked things in advance, which is good. It's a good job someone's organised. And also breakfasts that we're having, evening meal, what we're doing lunchtime. Are we going out? Are we going out for an evening meal, or is she going to cook back at the lodge? And if so, what's she going to cook? So she knows what to take food-wise. It's all organised. It's amazing to watch her. Actually, it's amazing. I'm stunned, amazed. I just can't believe it. There's me thinking, what shall I take? Shall I take? Oh no, I better not take that. Oh, perhaps I'll take this. When we drive off the ferry onto the island, we are going to, where are we going? We're going to the Dairyman's Daughter at Arreton. I call it the Vicar's Daughter. I don't know why. So the Dairyman's Daughter for lunch. That's at Arreton. Then we're going to Cour Abbey, which is the monastery type place. We're going there. We're going to have a look at a chap's headstone, a member of the family whose headstone is there. We're going to have a look at that, clean it up a bit, get the weeds away and put some flowers there for him. Then we're going to the lodge, or the cabin, whatever it's called, where we're staying. Then the ladies, Tricia's mum and her friend, will install them. They can be sorting out their cases and things, and we're going off to a supermarket. That's exciting, isn't it? Off to a supermarket to do some shopping. And then when we get back from there, we will unpack and blah, blah. You don't want to know that, do you? There's a friend of mine, we chat on the radio. Whenever he comes back from holiday, he'll say to me, well, day one we did this. We had so-and-so for breakfast. That was about 8:30 because we were a little bit late. Then after breakfast, we washed up and stuff. And what we did, we got in the car, we went to so-and-so, got there about 10, and he goes on this kind of list, minute to minute, what they did on day one. Then he goes on to day two, and of course I'm here falling asleep. Ah, dear, it's funny. Okay, be good, be bad. If you're bad, don't get caught. Look after yourselves. Thanks for listening as always. Take care. Bye bye for now.